The Battle of Uhud, Part 2. So at the Battle of Badr, the Muslims were vastly outnumbered, but they still managed to defeat the Quraysh tribe. And this victory was a massive embarrassment for the polytheists. So they wanted revenge, and they got their chance when the Muslims made a strategic blunder that allowed the polytheists to attack them at the next battle, the Battle of Uhud. Okay, so let's get into it. Date: 3AH or 625 CE. Opponents: Muslims versus the Quraysh. Cause: the Quraysh wanted revenge for their defeat at the Battle of Badr. The battle began with about 700 Muslims facing off against maybe 3,000 Quraysh warriors. So once again, the Muslims were heavily outnumbered, but this time it was the polytheists who got the early advantage because the Muslim archers disobeyed the Prophet's order and they left their position. This allowed the cavalry of Khalid ibn al-Walid, who was not a Muslim yet, by the way, to come around behind the Muslims and attack them from the flank. Now, to make matters worse, one of the rocks that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was holding onto while climbing up the mountain to get a better view of the battlefield fell down, injuring his tooth and bleeding profusely. But despite all these hardships, the Muslims fought bravely, and although they were victorious at first, when the reinforcements of the Quraysh arrived, they started getting overwhelmed, so the Muslims retreated, leaving behind some of their dead and wounded, including the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who had to be carried off the battlefield. In the end, the Quraysh won this battle. So why did the Muslims lose? Well, basically because of insubordination. The archers were supposed to stay put, but they didn't. They left their positions, and that allowed the cavalry to come around and attack them from behind. And if they had stayed in their positions, then maybe the outcome of the battle would have been different. Also, the Muslims became overconfident after their victory at Badr. They thought that they were invincible, and that also played a role in their defeat here. What's the lesson? Well, the lesson is to always follow orders, especially if they come from a person who is in a higher rank than you. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "O people, just as you are eager to earn your livelihood, be eager also to acquire good character." So what's the point of having military tactics and strategies if your troops don't follow them? In fact, the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, goes even further. He says, a person may be defeated in war despite being of superior strength simply because he does not fear Allah. In other words, if a person or a group of people do not fear Allah and they do not obey His commands, then they will never succeed, no matter how strong they are. May Allah grant us all success. Assalamu alaikum.